shit. Let's go ahead and jump into it. We got Coach Rowell with us today. Coach, go ahead and just kind of introduce yourself. A lot of my audience already know you from the wrestling podcast we've done in the past, and I thought this would be a perfect time for you to come on. One, we're about to play arena on football. Number two, a lot of our players on the football team, our football players, are wrestlers. And the players of the week this week, all of them ones are wrestlers. And also, like, you're kind of the reason where I got the idea from to kind of focus on Elgin sports, just kind of doing the podcast with you in the past and believing in your vision when it comes to sports. And, I think it's a good idea to have you on, and I guess let's talk about it, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love the way and the direction that the podcast goes, and it gives all of us, I know, speaking for myself at least, it gives me an outlet to come and speak about things that are going on and talk about, like you said, what our vision is for athletics here in Elgin, not just wrestling, all sports that we focus on. And now that we have you fully involved with the staff and, we're able to integrate that with this podcast, I think it's a great tool, to use and to stay connected with, members of the community, stay connected with family members, stay connected with just people that want to be on the in Elgin sports. And there's a lot of people that want to be in on it right now.
100%. As far as the actual high school football, what positions do you coach? I know you had me out there throwing footballs today, though.
Yeah, it's man, and that's kind of a complicated answer. It's really not, technically I coach the receivers and the defensive line, if you want to put it on paper, but this is my 7th season to coach football here, and I've kind of coached every position and just tried to do what's needed of me. And now, I like to tell people, or at least think, I try to just coach the mindset of the football players out there, and I try to coach every athlete's just the attitude, try to stay positive with kids, get on kids when they need it, and just be the assistant coach that Coach Wyatt needs, be what Coach Castro and Coach Baker needs, and just try to be, a Swiss Army knife for them a little bit, and conform to what they need. People don't understand. There's always stuff going on within our staff, and right. People have personal issues, and people aren't able to do stuff certain weeks, and you cover for your brothers, and you pull in where you need to, you push out where you need to, and you do whatever it takes to make it work. Well, as a coaching staff.
I mean, that's kind of interesting that you kind of say that, because when we had Coach White on a couple of weeks ago, we kind of had him kind of go through the staff a little about, who did what and kind of their roles and whatnot. And when he got to you, it was, he's the glue. I mean, he's the guy that kind of keeps everything running together and kind of keeps everything together from both, not only with the kids, but also the coaching staff itself. So, I mean, that goes to show, what you mean to the staff. And obviously to the head coach too, for him to kind of say that you're the guy that kind of keeps it all together and you're the glue within there.
Yeah, that means a lot. And like, I take that really, really to heart, and I try to take it personal as a coach. And I try to do whatever, when I'm a head coach during wrestling, everything that I need help with without saying, I try to do that for Coach Wyatt, or try to be there for him, and just little bitty things like that. I'm not ever going to go in there and give you any big master game plan to win a football game. I love football, and I can tell you the ins and outs on a lot of things, but like, that's not my role on this team. My role is just to be there for everybody and to be there for the kids and
talk
enthusiasm.
Talk a little bit about that, kind of the difference. First off, we'll start off, and I'll, we mentioned it during Meet the Owls night and things like that. I mean, congratulations on I know we're a year removed from it, but still winning a state title, no matter what the sport is and what's going on there. It's an awesome accomplishment for you guys, for your coaching staff, for the kids and all the families and related to that, because it takes a village to kind of get to that point 100%. Of winning the state championship. So congratulations on the dual state championship there on the wrestling side of things. But obviously in that sport, you're the head man, so you're calling all the shots, and it's your program and things like that. Talk a little bit about the difference between being the head man and kind of being an assistant and kind of a do-all and whatnot. I'm sure it gives you a different mindset, since you kind of know what it's like on the wrestling side to be the head man, and then kind of help out on the football side of things.
100%, and something me and Chalmer kind of joke about with each other. We always say, heavy's the head, that lies the crown. And it really is. At the end of the day, as the head coach, you have to answer every question, every single question to every parent, community, whoever, administration, whoever, you have to be the dude that's answering for everybody. So you're responsible not only for the kids, but you're responsible for a set of adults, and you're responsible for them adults to do the right things, to make sure they're always at the right place at the right time. So like my role as an assistant coach, I just always try to make sure that I'm there, I'm where I'm supposed to be. And Chalmer talks about that a lot, just be where you're supposed to be doing what you're supposed to do, and good things will happen. So that's the mindset I try to take as an assistant coach, is just be there, make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do, and coach the kids. Don't just be there standing there.
Yeah, as an assistant coach, I mean, the biggest thing is you don't want to be a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, being there where you're supposed to be doing, where you're supposed to be at that time, and then doing what you're supposed to be doing. So that way, I mean, it's hard enough as a head coach to deal with the kids, but then if you also have to kind of deal with the knucklehead kid assistant, I mean, that makes it even harder. So
100%. And you look at our staff, and we're a smaller staff, compared to all these other schools in the state, and that has its burdens on it, but also it has its blessings. We're able to keep our ship tight, our circle good, and make sure that people are sharp, and just knowing what we have with just the amount of coaches. Every single person has to be on their game every day, and we rely on each other for that.
I've talked to you before, and I said, like, one of the great things I got from the military was I got to be around great leaders. You know what I mean? Like, I had the opportunity to work with really fabulous, great leaders that taught me a lot, and like, do you learn anything? Like, do you take anything from your fellow coaches in football, from Coach White, from any of them? I know you had the opportunity to work with Coach Baker also on wrestling, so I'm sure there's kind of a different relationship with the other just straight football coaches.
100%. I always kind of one of my coaching philosophies is just to always be adaptive and always try to grow as a coach, So I'm always looking to my peers, my assistant coaches, other coaches, just people around the state, what are they doing? How are they interacting with the kids? How do they interact with my wrestlers? How do they interact with kids that are not, and then I try to go in and interact, maybe the same way or a different way, or however that kid might need at the time, just securing those relationships with the kids, especially.
We've asked most of the coaches that have been on this show in the past, kind of who are some of your, like Castro last week talked about Teddy Roosevelt, and that's kind of how the Rough Riders started and things like that, and then some of his O-line coach in high school and things like. Who are some of your kind of influences as a leader and as a head coach, not just from the football side of things, but on the wrestling side of things as well? Because obviously wrestling's more of your, I don't know, you said you love football, and we all do, but I mean, obviously wrestling's kind of your past and your.
Absolutely. I was fortunate, my dad coached me a lot growing up, and he started me, and he had a really good coach-son relationship with him. He knew how to talk to me. He knew how to coach me. He knew how to let other people coach me, so growing up, it was a big, influence of him. It was great. He did a great job. And then when I was in high school, I had Tom Brack, who was coached there in Duncan forever, old Gary connection with Coach Bean. And dude, he's fantastic. He was a great leader. Showed me things I needed to do, showed me things I didn't need to do, and it's good. It's good to get that from coaches. It's good to see what I needed to do different in my program than what he did when I was in high school. But he was a tremendous leader. And, he taught me a lot more in wrestling. He taught me to be a good man. He taught me to be a man of God. He was a great, great leader in that sense. And then when I got into college, my coach was David James, and not a lot of people know, coaching at Central Oklahoma, he won 15 national championships and is the second leading coach in the nation, ever, behind Dan Gable. He is a tremendous coach, and he was a tremendous leader. And same thing with him, taught me some great things not to do, and just try to pick up from all the good influences I've had, and mold them into what my vision is and what the vision of the program is, and make it all work.
100%. When it comes to coaching and stuff, is there anything you as a coach do as far as that you connect between wrestling and football?
Man, I try to keep the mindset the same. You try to keep that mindset, and I always I think about the perfect combination of person is if you can put, a quarterback that has all these great decision-making skills and all these calmness and poise, and put a wrestler's mindset into him of, never being able to back down in a situation, always having total confidence in yourself, being able to push through adversity. That's the biggest thing when you take mindsets from wrestling to football is you teach kids that you're going to have setbacks, you're going to have obstacles. How do you react to that? And, that's what I try to bind between the two sports is just taking that mindset, coaching their mentality and keeping it the same. I have people tell me every day there's a great culture around Elgin, and I believe that is firmly built around a wrestling mindset.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I mean, one of the best things about it is, and you talk to other people, you say, build a great wrestling program. Your football team is only probably going to get better as long as there's bleed over between the two programs. Because now I was never a wrestler. I was a quarterback, so I was basketball, baseball kid, and this, that, and the other. But my brother-in-law was a wrestler, and a lot of the things that he took from wrestling translated onto the football field as a safety and different type of player and things. Talk a little bit about kind of what translates from wrestling. I know we talked a little bit about dealing with adversity and never backing down, things like that, but kind of just the athletic attributes of what kind of translates. Obviously it showed a ton last year, like Toby Parker.
Absolutely.
And some of those type of guys. And obviously Richardson and some of those other guys, and we'll talk about some of the guys that do both. But what those physical attributes, athletic attributes that translate well from the wrestling mat onto the football field.
That's Coach Wyatt and the staff has done a great job, even with the kids that are not wrestlers, getting them involved in some sort of physical activity with wrestling, whether it's front rolls, back rolls, cartwheels. Learning your body, is the biggest thing with wrestling. You know how to distribute your weight different. You know how to move your feet and take your body with you, which is what's so important with football and wrestling, anything, being able to move your hands and feet at the same time, lower your level to make impact, things like that are tremendous. And that's why not only is our offense explosive and great, our defense is just tremendous. Coach Baker, with the game plan and everything is on its own different level, but the tackling those kids bring in, being able to change levels and put their face in someone's chest and run through them, I think really shows, and it's something I'm very, very proud of.
Do you think there's anything to like as far as defense goes? And I'm talking. This is clearly something I started thinking about because the 7th grade game yesterday.
OT win, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, we so I talk to my boy sometimes just about attack style wrestling, if you will. I think his game when he got a lot better wrestling once he started being active on offense versus playing off somebody else's controlling tempo.
Yep.
And his position, at outside linebacker. I think that was key yesterday, and we had two kids that. They have the opportunity to go against each other every day in wrestling practice. They're kind of the same position when it comes to sports. You know what I mean? With them two, an outside linebacker. I think that was a big deal. Do you see anything like that when it comes to?
Yeah, talking about True and Dax are two 7th grade kids, and they were kids that wrestled at junior high state to get into the placement match. So we had two Elgin kids wrestle against each other to be a state placer. They're both really good wrestlers. And watching them play outside backer, they do a great job of making contact with their hands. They're not just running in like dummies and smashing into people.
Right.
They're making contact with their hands. They're getting off blocks. They're being physical out there, and just like you said, they're on the offense. Even though they're on defense, they're on the offense. They're making contact. They're controlling the tempo of the game, and I think that's tremendous. And wrestling will teach you that. It teaches you a sense of urgency, and it teaches you to attack first.
And I think one of the best examples of that to me on the varsity side of things is Jack.
100%.
Jack, we talked about it a little bit with Coach Baker. Jack, I've heard on the wrestling mat, it's kind of similar to the football. Like you feel like he is just beat, but he finds a way to flip out of it or crawl out of it or whatever way he finds a way. And I think a lot of that, like I said, never seen him wrestle, but have seen him on the football field. And it seems like a lot of that transfers pretty well into him playing a defensive end spot for us.
100%. Not only physically, wrestling's helped him in that sense. He knows how to use his hands and manipulate his body, but mentally, he gets beat down on a lot of plays, but the plays that he makes up for it tremendously, So like the trade-off there is great. And he's just a kid that I've seen losing by 14 points and pin a kid, and it's crazy. And it helps when you're a slender man and you're 6'4" and 180 pounds and
Gumby.
You can literally get lost on the defensive line trying to find him, man, because he's a freaking tornado in there. Right. He knows how to use his hands, and his mindset this year has probably been the biggest thing. He's taken the attitude in that, the first year on the defensive line, he's like, I'm going to take my ass whoopings out here. And this year he's trying to deliver a lot more. So it's cool to see.
Yeah.
100%. It's funny. We on the way. I'm sure we're gonna get into a little bit of the Weatherford game, but on the way to the game, we had the opportunity to ride with Coach White's dad.
Yeah,
and he just happened to bring up Jack's dad, him back in the day wrestling.
We were just randomly talking about wrestling, and he brought up Ted Angeli, who was Elgin's first state champion, second state champion. Second. He was a state champion here in Elgin, and that's cool, man. Just to bring that connection, and he goes. And then Coach White's dad made the connection. He was like, oh, that's his boy on the team. I said, yeah, it's that's his. And he was telling us how bad of a dude Ted was back in the day.
Dude, that was an awesome conversation to have on a bus ride up there. Usually on the bus ride up there, I'm just I'm calm, on buses. Reminds me a little bit on the plane going overseas.
Yeah, the bus ride to games is always, you're on a business trip and everybody's focused and this, that, and the other. So it's a little different of a ride than on the way back.
That's a rare treat, though. You get to talk to someone like Wes Wyatt, to
have that conversation, man. I was motivated, like Coach Oz gets me motivated talking to him. I'm talking about the old days and stuff. I get motivated talking about that. I'm like, we're making memories right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's good stuff. Let's jump into the Weatherford game.
Yeah, the Weatherford game was is what we expected. We knew we were going to go in there and be tested and have a fight, and we were sloppy at first, and everybody will say that, and we kind of had our mistakes here and there, but that's just back to the mindset of battling through adversity and sticking to the game plan. And once kids did that, we were fine. We went out there and we imposed our will the whole game on them, and it was good to see.
It was good to be tested. I mean, the first half, it was very sloppy for multiple reasons. But like I said, it was good to see us have a little bit. I mean, the first two games were kind of, you did whatever you wanted. Yes. And you don't learn a lot from that.
100%.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's great. It's wonderful. It looks good. Your stats look great. But at the end of the day, when you start to get into the, El Reno's coming up, the district play, the MacArthur's, the Midwest cities, things like that, you want to be tested.
Yes.
Going into that. And I mean, first half was a good test. Played very sloppy, played very ugly at times. But then second, came in there at halftime and probably had a few choice words and, kind of looked at everybody and said, okay, we're way better than this team. Let's kind of put the hammer down. And that's kind of where it went. I mean, I think the O-line kind of took over in the second half. And I mean, we couldn't really run the ball much in the first half, which was unfortunate. And the second half, we, like I said, kind of imposed our will and did whatever we wanted there on the offensive side of the thing. Defense side of the ball, they played great all night.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they've played great all season. I mean, we've given up, 13 points through 3 games, and those 13 points were kind of in garbage time.
Yes.
So the way that those guys are rocking and rolling right now is kind of an impressive thing to watch, and that all kind of stems back to the coaching staff and Jack Baker's game plans and things like that. But overall, I mean, kind of take us through the mindset of the team and kind of at halftime. I mean, you're still up 13-0, so I mean you can't really go in there too upset. But I mean, obviously you didn't play the way that you wanted to. So kind of take us through kind of halftime and kind of some of that mindset of what was said and what adjustments were made and things like that.
Things are different than they have been, in the past years. When you go in 13-0, normally as a staff, we're like, all right, how can we hold on to this lead? How can we protect this and win this game? We went in there confident we're going to win the game, and I think I said to them, we're winning because we have a lot more talent than them, and it's the truth. We weren't playing discipline, but our talent was showcasing and we got through. And so we go in there and we challenge the kids, we say, hey, here's some adversity. What are you going to do with it? You told us before that you want to be state champions. You want to do this. You want to do that. Here's your time to prove it, And we challenged them, made our corrections, and kids responded and cleaned it up, and it was a lot better in the second half.
Talk about that a little. Obviously, you mentioned earlier you've been on the staff for 7 years now. So talk about how now you're addressing a group of kids. We returned pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden you're addressing a group of kids that you've been to battle with now for 3 and 4 years. you're always teaching as a coach, but at the end of the day, you're kind of beyond with the group now that they've been playing. You're beyond the coaching.
Exactly what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? You're beyond the coaching part. You're beyond the teaching part. It's just kind of, it's almost looking in the mirror. Like, guys, it's more of a gut check type of talk rather than, or an experience type of talk. I remember when this happened, that happened, yada, yada, yada. Talk about kind of how enjoyable that part of it is, I guess. And then what's the difference in that and of always trying to have to teach and some of those type of things?
I find it now like we're not teaching the basics to kids anymore. Like you talk about, we're getting to coach the really fine details to them, the high level stuff. And when you get into that, even I have that as like in a wrestling program, you get to teach at that high level, you find yourself teaching more, and you're able to really pour yourself into it and get into these details. So that's extremely enjoyable, and then as a coach, you get to sharpen up by going back and coaching those JV kids, those freshman kids. And I coach the 7th and 8th grade team. I coach the freaking 1st and 2nd grade team. So like you see these different levels of just progression. And as a coach, it's fantastic to go out to the varsity and be able to coach them at a high level,
So you're coaching now like the nuances, I guess you can say, and kind of, like I said, the high level stuff rather than, hey, you got to take your left foot here.
Yes,
some of that type of stuff.
100%. And, I found myself in the first couple of years having to teach that at every single level, and we really focused in on those young levels for a while. And like Jace and Colin and them, I've had since they were in 4th grade, so the relationship is I've seen them grow up. I know what they're made of. I know what they're capable of. I know what their mindset is. So,
and you know what buttons to push now too.
100%. And, we have, and with that comes conflict with kids like that. We know each other so well, and there's been examples of this week. And you don't let them kids abuse that relationship with you. We're so close and we're so tight, but you still got to know what your role is, that we're telling you what to do for the goodness of the team.
Right.
And it's not always just your personal intentions, and the kids do a really good job of that. Where there's a lot of personalities on the team.
Yeah,
there's a lot of personalities and a lot of kids that are different, but like something that gives me chills thinking about, and I talked about it, I saw before the game in Weatherford, like 2 of our kids, they're constantly like, they're beefing throughout the week. They're always competing with each other, bumping heads. I see them on the field before the game, slapping hands, getting ready to go. Every kid's like that. When it's time to play, mindsets change. It's the whole team pulling on the same chain.
And in the 3 or 4 weeks that we've done this podcast, we've talked about how good it is for you guys that y'all are coaching and we are looking at good kids.
Yeah.
For the most part, this year we haven't really had any distractions of, kids getting suspended and doing the wrong things and things like that. So you're talking about good kids, that come from good families and things like that. And that makes y'all's job probably a little bit easier because you're not having to, fool with the bad apple and some of that type of stuff. And we're one detention away from having a bad apple. But at the end, right now, it seems like everybody's bought in and kind of that's kind of progressing that way. So, that makes it, I would assume, for you guys a little bit easier too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say this a lot too, like we don't have the problems of kids not coming to practice or having to go pick them up out of bed and stuff like that. Like the kids are going to get there and the parents do a good job. Like we have a great parent community, who understand. And like you can have kids that have parents that are active at home, but if they don't understand what it takes, and I have to be at this practice no matter what. Like there's no other option. I got to be there.
Right.
And you get parents that grow up in the football league, the youth football league, and understand things like that. It makes it a lot easier for you.
Well, and that's why I made that comment earlier when I congratulate you. It takes a village. Being a good football team, being a good basketball team, wrestling, whatever it is. You've got to have buy-in from all levels. The kid can be bought in, but if he's a 13, 14-year-old kid without a ride, and mom and daddy's not willing to bring him to practice, and you can't do it. That's a problem. Right now we've got buy-in from coaches, we got buy-in from administration, which is great because obviously that's where it kind of starts. You got buy-in right now, obviously from the community. than your coaching staff to players, to their players' families and things like that. I mean, it's a pretty cool thing to watch.
No, 100%. I think it is. And one thing that, that I caught on to, like even in the military as kids, the younger kids, the way they was raised, you could tell, you probably don't have the sense of urgency you should have, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes it's nothing against. I don't want this to sound bad, but it's nothing against. Sometimes it's not the kids, they just don't. Their parents just don't understand.
It's the parents,
they just don't understand. There should be a sense of urgency. It's not just a sport. You got to take it as seriously as you would your grades, and sometimes there's a correlation between the grades and the effort they put out on the field too.
100%.
You know what I mean? It's just one of them things, man. I think so. Sometimes at a younger age, you're not only coaching kids, but you're coaching parents.
That's the hardest thing to do. That's the hardest interaction I have as a coach, is having to coach the parents, and you have to do that. And I truly believe one of the reasons we won a state championship this year is I was able to trust my village more than ever. Yeah. And I really did that, and I had to. It almost took me to the grave a couple of years ago, being able to do everything myself and just kind of head down trying to do that, and being able to trust my village and trust that these people are doing the right things was night and day for us.
Yeah, it's a blessing to have a Ryan Donnelly.
Yeah, dude.
You know what I mean? That's a blessing, man. We had him on the podcast, man. It was great to I thought it was great just to pick his brain, man.
That's what Ryan is. He's a coach of the parents, man. If you need someone to coach some parents' asses up, it's going to be Ryan. And they need to listen to him, because the man's done a lot of things right when it comes to that, because he's got two tremendous boys that, I don't know, I put a lot of stock in. I'll trust him with a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Brody D, dog.
Yeah, it's a...
Man, I've never wanted to hug a kid and tackle him at the same time.
Yeah.
He's a great kid, man. Him and Colin both are really great kids, man. They really did a good job.
They did, man. They did, and they did a good job of, when things didn't go right for them, like growing up in athletics, not giving them any excuses. Just telling them to work
That's
harder.
The biggest thing. I mean,
just telling them to work harder. It's never your coach's fault. It's never your teammates' fault. Work harder. Even when it was their teammates' fault, even telling your kids to work harder is a great mindset to give them.
Well, and I mean, you give the kid, hey, I mean, okay, you're I understand. You can talk to the kid. I understand that your teammates. Then you got to work harder, because they got to follow somebody.
Yes.
So part of the reason maybe your teammates didn't work as hard is because they saw you slacking off a little or something. Because I mean, like I said, a lot of kids, and I mean, kudos to you guys for being coaches and things like that, because kids these days are way different than I don't know your age exactly, Cody, but I mean, from when I was playing, I mean, and like I said, you look back at the Michael Jordan deal. I mean, Michael Jordan got cut from his high school basketball team, and his mom told him, well, I guess you got to work harder. She didn't say, hey, let's transfer. Hey, let's find another school. Let me go talk to the administration. She told him work harder. And that ultimately led to him being one of the greatest athletes of all time.
Yeah.
And you learn more from your defeats and your failures than you do from your wins. Wins are great. But those first two games of the year, bringing it full circle back to football, the first two games of the year, did we really find out much about Elgin football? We can execute on offense at a high level, and we're pretty good on defense. But we have no idea what we can do when our backs are against the wall. Not saying our backs are against the wall against Weatherford, because we did, even though we weren't up as much as we wanted to at halftime. I mean, we did face a little bit of adversity. Got to take a little bit of a break, go to the locker room, recompose ourselves, and came out and kicked ass in the second half. So, I mean, that shows some. And, I mean, we learned more in the Weatherford game than we did. The score was, just as lopsided as the other ones. But, I mean, we probably learned more in that game than we did in the first two. And, I mean, that's what kids, I don't think, today's age, and it's not necessarily the kids, the parents want to,
They need to see their baby on Facebook doing the best.
Yeah, it's a competition.
They need that immediate gratification of it, and that's so hard. Wrestling is like one of them sports where, when kids start, they can get the piss beat out of them,
right?
Depending on what type of kid you are, and you can teach kids successful things right off the bat to win them some matches, and we do that with some kids. We don't send kids out there just to get killed, but you've got to build that foundation and teach them that, like, hey, you're not going to have instant success. And that kind of leads to like what we were talking about with the kids. Like it's the greater vision. Like you're going to have things go wrong in your life and they're not going to be fair. Like, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
Are you going to turn it down and not provide for your family?
Right.
You know, are you going to be that dude when you're 40 years old that turns it down? No, I was taught that at a young age in youth athletics, or I was taught that in junior high or high school, or whoever, by a coach that instilled that into me, you know.
Well, even some of the best dynasties and some of the best teams that there are, and you think of college, professional sports, things like that, they could never get over that hump.
Yeah.
At some point, you know, Bulls couldn't beat Pistons. You know, Patriots kind of lost some games early and things like that. I mean, you know, us losing to Guthrie last year, I mean, we got there. So now we kind of taste it. So now, you know, you grow from that. I mean, very rarely do you just start on top of the hill. You got to find your way. You got to find your way up there, and you get slid down a couple of rings here and there. But it makes it that much more rewarding when you get to the top to say, okay, I know what it's like to be at the bottom too. So
I like to piggyback off that, man. Coach Rowell, I hate to say like giving parents advice, you know what I mean? Because some people are going to take that wrong.
No,
you know what I mean?
because they'll never take it. They'll never take it unless it's from them. You know, and you got to spin it to them like that sometimes.
Right.
You know what you said was perfect there. But as far as it goes, like, you know, advice for parents, you know, like I kind of talked to you about today, and you gave me some good advice on how to approach kids when they're trying to get out on the field. We had a close game. You know, I understand everybody wants to play. You know what I mean? Sometimes, I mean, being new to coaching football and wrestling is kind of cut and dry. You know what I mean? In football, it's not as cut and dry. You know what I mean? But you gave me some advice today that made it more cut and dry for me. You know, can you right now do better than the person's out there? You know what I mean? Can you kind of talk about that and maybe give some advice to parents instead of making it, you know, pointing fingers? What can they tell their kid to make them do better?
And like the situation you're talking about, I was talking to you and Hayden about kids on the sideline during 7th and 8th grade games, just constantly asking to get in.
Can I get in? Yeah.
You know, and like that's, and you know, people want to be like, well, that's annoying, blah, blah, and I get that, but like, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Because that means they want to be out there.
It does. And like just not knowing how to handle it and maybe cut it off before it gets to a parent who doesn't understand what's going on. Yeah. Maybe you approach that kid in a way that will make you probably uncomfortable as a coach initially, but you just go to them and you have an honest conversation and be like, hey, this game right now is 0-0. We're in overtime. Are you better than this guy in front of you? Can the team depend on you to get this done? And then if they don't give you an answer, you know, you just start going, have you been at this practice? Have you done this? Have you done that? Give them a list in a proper way. You don't have to get on them and embarrass them in front of everybody. You know, you have an honest conversation with them and be like, hey, here's what you do to get better, you know. And we have parents email us, call us all the time. Why isn't my kid getting in and stuff? We invite them in, say, hey, your kid's this, and this. They're not doing this as good as this person. Want us to put the film on and show you an example, you know.
Parents come to the games.
Yes.
A lot of parents don't come to practice. So ultimately what happens, so JV or whatever day y'all play, what happens on, let's say the JV game's on Thursday, whatever happens on Monday through Wednesday is who's going to play on Thursday.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, if you miss Monday or you miss Tuesday, you're already behind the 8 ball. But if you're there the entire time, like you said, I mean, if you're not putting in, and not saying that the kid might be putting in 100% effort, but if Billy's better than Tommy, Billy's going to play. And that's the way life works. That's the way the world works and things like that. And I mean, we love the games when everybody can play and you know, but once you get to JV, once you get to varsity, it's no longer, hey, every kid like going on a baseball tournament, every kid has to bat, every kid has to play an inning. It doesn't require that. So at the end of the day, coaches, I mean, you guys, I mean, at the end of the day, this is y'all's profession. Winning ball games and some of them, maybe not necessarily on the JV level, but I mean winning. But I mean, you're also preparing kids to the varsity level. I mean, you're putting the kids that are in the best positions to help you win, because ultimately, I mean, it's also how you.
It's your job.
Your family.
It is.
It's your job. I mean,
is.
I mean, yeah. If we would love, as coaches, we'd love to play every single kid that's on the team that makes an effort, that's there every day, and things like that. But I mean, it's just
One of the
in seventh grade is where they really start figuring that out. Either you haven't played before, or you grew up in a youth system where everybody got to play, and there's a time and place for that, but do you grow out of that mindset, and seventh grade, yes, we're trying to win games, we're going to try to have the development of the kids spot on, but we need to win games, you need to let them know that we're doing everything we can to win games for you,
right?
And kids appreciate that. And like back to one more thing on that, Coach Wyatt said something really, really good this week. Said, any kid that wants to, our parent that wants to have a meeting about playing time, tell them absolutely, but make them bring the kid with you.
Yeah,
like the kid has to be in that meeting. And 9 times out of 10, the kid won't want to be in that meeting. You won't
because the kid doesn't want to tell. The kid knows.
The kid knows why they're playing. Why they're not playing.
That's great.
And that's great advice he picked up from another coach. And like little things like that are good things to pick up on. And I like it. It's cool.
Because at the end of the day, the kid knows.
Yes,
the 100%. Kid. Yeah, and the kid may be literally at home going, but dad or mom,
because they're too embarrassed to tell them.
They're too embarrassed to tell mom, like, I'm not as good as that person. But yeah, that I've never heard that before, but that's phenomenal advice because, like you said, and then especially if you pull out the tape.
Yep.
Because the eye in the sky never lies. So it is what it is.
No, and football is where you really get a lot of that, just because it's one of them sports where, it might be subjective to somebody who's better,
Yeah.
And in wrestling,
and you got 11 people. You got 11 people on the field at once. It's like, well, why can't on this play Johnny?
Why can't I sneak in there on the sideline?
Right.
And I get that crap a lot, like from people.
We're in overtime.
And,
I
get it about like certain
you
kids
get hurt too.
That don't need to be on the field,
Right.
And it's my job just to be like, yo, I ain't gonna put you out there to get killed or to get somebody else killed,
right?
And like, I don't know, I carry that all the way down to first and second grade football, maybe because my baby's playing quarterback back there, but like, I would do that for any other kid. I did it for the first grade quarterback last year. My kid was blocking for him, and I made sure that those kids know, like, you have an extreme responsibility out there, to block and do your job. And you start teaching them at a young age. And trust me, I never thought I'd be able to teach a first and second grader how to do that. I thought it was too young to start playing football.
Yeah.
I wasn't really bought in. Kid begged me to do it, and then got into it, and it's been like the best thing I've ever done. It's made me a better coach. It's taught me to handle kids better, and it's just been like an outlet, kind of. I don't not look forward to going to that school. It's fun.
So
it looks crazy, but it's fun.
Before we get into the players of the game and things like that, take me through that. Because all right, so you're a man of many hats.
Yeah,
you're a dad of what, 3?
Yeah.
You're coaching the first and second grade team. You're head wrestling coach. You're varsity assistant. You're 7th and 8th grade. How did you live 30 hours and all of us live 24 a day? How does that work?
My support staff is great. Like, my wife is fantastic. Like, she carries the burden, of a lot of things, and I couldn't do it without her, but also just like the flexibility within our coaching staff. Like, not very many head football coaches would let me come in and do the things that I do, just being at practice the way I am, being in and out, I'm there, but I also have a responsibility to run my 7th hour wrestling. I have my off-season wrestling. I have to get those kids at practice in, and then come October 1st, I have to start actual wrestling practice till 4:30 every day. I just catch the tail end of practice. I know the game plan, know what's going on, but I'm there to do what I'm supposed to do, glue everybody together and be there and be supportive. But as far as like putting everything together, it's fun just because it keeps me grounded, like, to make sure I'm doing everything right. I can't have any slip ups in my day, or like things aren't going to go right. I'm not going to be able to like do things that my kids need me to do for me, and like the coolest thing, like I'm able to do, and like I challenge myself to do, is have that Friday night mentality, but then go in there and coach some Saturday morning kids, and to carry that same like mentality, but know who I'm talking to. Like, when I coach my kid, I can't have like negative body language or negative expressions, because he feeds off my emotions.
He knows you better than everybody.
Yeah, he's 8 years old. He can do that. He has that right to do that until he gets older, and I don't know. It just, I try and I challenge myself as a coach to be able to do those things. And sometimes I don't, man. Sometimes I do a shitty job of it. And I don't know. I'm just trying to do less times like that. And the support staff helps it all, you know, just being able to do that. And like my friendship with Derek helps out tremendously because like, even he's there on the sidelines 9 a.m. Saturday morning. What you need any help? Need me to do this, do that? Like, you don't have anything until 5th grade cheerleading.
Right.
That's just like, I have friends like that are great, you know, Nate, Derek, you know, Jack Baker, you know, he comes and coaches my kids in wrestling and comes to all those youth practices. People don't know that, like, during football season, like high school football season, we start youth wrestling, you know, and like I'm running night practices till 9 o'clock at night, running all these groups. And his son comes in and wrestles, and he comes in and runs novice practice with me, coaches all these kids, you know, and he gets the trade-off of my interaction. I have a great interaction with his son, you know, me and him get along well. I'm able to coach him and talk to him, but like he gets that, but I get the greatness of having Jack Baker in there coaching all those kids, you know, on a freaking Tuesday night where we're going to play MacArthur on Thursday, you know, but he's in there sacrificing his time. And like, that's cool, man. That's to have people that want to invest back into me.
When you talk about the burden and the blessing of having a small staff, and that's one of the blessings of it. I mean, you guys are, you know, lockstep and key all together on the same page. And like I said, you guys been around a lot of coaching staffs in my life and whatever else, but you guys are probably the closest knit that I've ever been around. And then, like I said, y'all even invite, you know, us lowly people sometimes in as well to kind of get a glimpse of it. And it's a pretty cool deal that y'all got going.
The coolest thing, and like I believe this, man, I think we all like believe in each other as coaches so much. Like we want each other. I want them to coach my kids, you know?
Yeah.
I want them to be invested in my kids because I believe what they're doing. And I think they believe the same way with me, you know? And when you invest in each other like that and you hold each other accountable as a staff, you know, that's when you start getting good things happening. And that's why we're successful right now, I believe.
Before we get into the players of the weeks, man, I need this is a story. I don't know how many people you've told this story, but it's a story. I get emotional talking about dad, so if I break down, I'm sorry. But it's a story you told me about your dad, and I believe it was your freshman year. You didn't make it to state.
Yeah.
And your dad took you to watch state.
Yeah, like my freshman year, it was just like I was doing everything I could to qualify to the state tournament, you know. And
you're from Duncan, right?
From Duncan, okay. Yeah. And, you know, I'm like the only freshman on the team. I'm just trying to make it. Don't make it. And the next weekend, they're all wrestling up there. I don't want to go. I don't want to do anything. My dad makes me go sit in the stands and watch the state finals, you know. And, like, I'm in the stands crying because I'm so pissed off. I want to be down there wrestling.
But you're learning from that.
Yes, and like at the time, I hate him. Go and talk to him.
right.
Dude, I don't want to be here. It eats me up. And even like today, if I get beat in something, like I don't want to go watch that shit the next day. Like I don't want to be involved in it. Like I'm salty.
Right.
But that taught me, you know, like, dude, you don't ever want to feel like this again. And like something that always replays in my head, like is that, and then just like, when I was wrestling, it was like, all right, I can go out and do everything I can and almost die on this mat and win, or I wake up a loser tomorrow morning and I have to deal with that. And like the mentality of having that and having to wake up with like a loss on my head used to motivate the shit out of me.
Take me, before we get into that, just because I'm going to piggyback on that, take me through, for those that don't know you that well and things like that. Okay, so you wrestle at Duncan, then where you wrestle in you wrestle in college, right?
Yeah, I wrestled at UCO in Edmond.
Okay.
And wrestled 5 years there. I was All-American.
3-time state champion.
Yeah, I was a 3-time state champion. So like my sophomore year, I went back and dude, like before regionals, I was just trying to qualify again. I was the 6 seed I was a 5 seed. Wrestled the 4 seed, upset him, upset the 1 seed, make it into the regional finals, get beat. Awesome, make it to state, and then the next weekend make it into the state finals. You know, I beat the number 1 from the other side, senior, and then I was losing 8-1 in the state, 7-1 in the state finals. Ended up coming back and winning 10-7, like with 6 seconds left.
So you're sophomore, junior, and senior at Duncan. You win state, and you're way to be okay.
Yeah,
gotcha. And then
UCO, and then we won a team championship in like 2007, my true freshman year, or my redshirt freshman year. And then I was an All-American my senior year in 2010. got 8th at nationals, top 8 All-American. So it was
Sweet.
dude. I went to nationals my senior year. 15-15 was my record. Like, didn't really anybody expected me to qualify. My brother was the 125 pounder at the team at the time, and like, I don't know, he was kind of the one where we was like, all right, man, he's gonna go make it, and I'm just trying to end my career the right way. And I ended up upsetting some kids and making it to nationals. And then at nationals, I was kind of happy to be there, but ended up losing my first match, winning my second one, and then had a defending national champion on the backside and upset him, which was cool, man. And I got to All-American my senior year, and it was like, that was cool, but like it kind of changed my trajectory in life a little bit. I felt like, you know, it gave me like a different level of confidence. And
did you roll directly into coaching after that? Or?
No, I did medical sales for six years, you know, and sold joint replacements in the hospitals, traveled around, and it was cool. My connections to wrestling got me into that. You know, I knew a lot of people. And
I got a bunch of buddies that I played college football with that
and it was a good avenue as a single man, but like, and it taught me a lot of things. And I had to go through a lot of things in life in that period to get where I'm at, like as a man and like everything. And so I wouldn't change it, but like maybe should have jumped on that coaching train a little earlier. And then like 2015, when I was still doing that, I lay coached at Deer Creek for 1 year, coached wrestling out there with Andy Howington, who's at Marlow now. And then the next year got out, got into teaching, had Waylon, you know, had my first kid, got out of that, took the job at Elgin. So me and my brother applied for the same job.
Really?
Yeah.
So, he's kind of underselling his national championship bracket, though. Like, he had Kamaru Usman in his bracket.
Yeah, Kamaru Usman won my weight that year, UFC champion.
Yeah.
And I wrestled him at home one time in front of the whole UCO crowd. He gave me a whooping, but I didn't know I was there. I mean, I wish there was video of it. There was some cool stuff that went on in that match, but looking back at it now, like there was a lot of good kids in that weight, and to have one of the best pound for pound fighters ever. Yeah, got to wrestle him, got to do combat with him. Right, you know, it's cool, and like a really weird connection there. His high school coach was my wife's uncle. Yeah, he's from Bowie, Texas, and my wife's uncle coached him down in Bowie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's awesome.
It's a small world.
Yes, it is. It really is.
Well, it's just like you know, when I found out, you know, like who your coach was and stuff like that, you know, the Braggs, you know, his brother Larry was my first wrestling coach. You know, I learned a lot from him, you know, as well, especially coming up to the youth program. And
you know, like even I had coaches that even like probably one of my biggest, just before we get into the players again, I know we want to talk about that, but like a coach that I don't talk about a lot was my track coach. It was like, his name was Joe Harper, and he's the most fantastic man. And I don't like really keep up with him nowadays, Facebook here and there, but always involved in my wrestling, always in I ran hurdles, you know, I qualified for state 1 year in hurdles, you know, I was just there to go to track meets, you know, it was fun. Right. Yeah. But, just always gave me like a supreme confidence, you know, as like a slow white kid running the hurdles, like just running through the hurdles, you know, not really going over them, but like gave me a supreme confidence, and it just helped carry over into other sports, you know, like I think that helps me coach other kids that are not involved with wrestling, you know, and just give them that confidence to no matter what you're doing, this coach has invested, like he didn't have to invest into me, you know, because I wasn't helping him tremendously on the track team, you know, but like, he was invested in me as a person, and that was tremendous.
Everybody that played sports at a decently level through high school has some sort of coach that, you know, impacted them in some sort of way through life. I mean, we talk about it all, you know, my father-in-law, okay, sounds great. Yeah, I mean, he was my high school football coach, but there was Bill Babin was a baseball coach of mine that coached a group of kids that on a traveling baseball team when we were 14 and 15 years old. Spent 4 months of my entire life with the man, but he probably taught me more about me as a person than anybody ever in my life. Because I was a shit when I was a 14, 15-year-old kid. I mean, I thought I was God's gift to creation. I mean, I was, a very good athlete, and everybody told me I was, and he was the first one that was like, "You're a great athlete, but you're an asshole."
That was me when I was like 20.
I mean, I continued on with it. I continued on with it until I was probably 30. But looking back at some of the things that he taught me and told me and whatever, I mean, to this day, when I go back to New Orleans, I mean, I always find a way. He's an attorney now. He was an attorney then, but he's an attorney now. And part of the reason I became an attorney at one point in my life was through him. And yeah, I mean, like I said, and spent 5 months total, because it was a select travel type ball team. So it wasn't like he was my coach for years and years and years and this, that, and the other. I literally 5 months of my entire life. And he made such a huge impact on me.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I said, any athlete, any kid that, sports means the world to him and things like that, you'll find those type of kids. And like you said, random track coach wasn't your sport of choice and whatever else, but he made a huge impact on you. So that's a pretty cool deal.
Yeah. That's like there's two things, like, they don't ever understand. I mean, as coaches, like, something I try to remember is like the smallest interactions can make a difference with kids. It really can, because they do with me as an adult. So I know with kids they can, like, the smallest interaction can make that. But
because right now they're so impressionable.
Yes, and then, like, if you make the right impact, like, you can make a generational impact on them too. Like, that not only gave you that great life lessons and motivations, but I'm sure you take that into your fatherhood.
Yeah, makes me a better businessman, makes me a better father, makes me better everything. I mean, on top of it. I mean, like I said, actual, days spent with him coaching me, 5 months of my entire life. And I mean, that's just crazy. Huge impact on the way that I go about life, the way that I think about certain things, the way, I was a cocky, selfish, self-absorbed 14, 15-year-old kid. And he was the first one ever that, like, made me realize it. Yeah. And it did change me for the better. I hope. I mean, I'm still cocky, but I like to say it's confidence now.
So let's jump into the players of the week against Weatherford. And I want to start with Andre Crabtree. Yeah. I don't know why I had trouble saying that.
He would have been a fantastic wrestler.
That's what I was about to say. And I want to start with him because I think he would have been a fantastic wrestler.
Yeah. Yeah. I love them both, man.
Those kids are great kids. No, go ahead.
They, like, pound for pound with their strength, they'd have been freaky in wrestling because they're freaky strong. And I know athletically they'd have been fine. But yeah, they're fantastic kids too. Like, it's just, I'm so proud to see him having success. He hasn't been a kid that I've directly coached every single year, but I've seen him since he was a goofy little fifth grader, or fourth grader or whatever, third grader probably with that group. And
Andre got Defensive Player of the Week, correct?
Yep.
Okay, just kind of level set that for the audience out there.
Yeah, he's a force out there at outside linebacker, man. He's like a kid where we put him out there and we don't have to throughout the game, I don't ever hear anybody saying, all right, Andre's getting beat there. Right. Andre, this is happening.
Or he's in the wrong spot. Or
it's just Andre's doing his job.
Yeah.
Andre's doing his job, and that's a lot to be said. That's how Toby Parker was last year. We never really talked about Toby Parker because Toby Parker was on his own island with somebody out there, and he was going to do his job.
Right.
And Andre's the same. He's a great kid. We've seen him put in the work. He didn't come to us like the best gifted athlete in junior high. He wasn't very coordinated, he was a typical junior high kid, and he had to grow into his body. He's a big featured kid that took him a while to grow into those feet. It took him a while to get out of the stance for a while, but now, like, he's one of the most explosive kids we have, and that's cool to see the progression. People need to know that happens here. Like, we don't just get fantastic athletes, and like we've had tremendous strength coaches. Bo Bethard was tremendous for both the Crabtrees. And he's tremendous for a lot of our kids, and I want to make sure that's always said. Like, Lance does a fantastic job, and there's no drop off right there, but like, Bo was great for us, and he really helped these kids get stronger and teach them how to lift, the proper way.
What about Little homie, special teams, Bryce Martin, brother.
Bryce Martin, man, I have some of the best stories in the world with Bryce Martin. Some of the most frustrating times ever with him, but also like, boy, I've had some high moments with him. You know, him placing at state.
All right, so what does he wrestle at?
He wrestled at 106 last year.
Okay, so I'm about to say he can't weigh more than 120.
Yeah,
okay.
and 106 pounds is a small kid.
Yes.
It's a small high school kid, you know, but like he came to us last year about 115 out of football season, you know, and then got down to weight naturally the right way, but he's a kid that did not have a ton to lose to begin with. So it always had to be stayed on top of. So he struggled with it throughout the season, you know, all the way
just
through.
Getting 106, I mean, like you said, it's got to be different.
Yeah, it was. And he went in and placed third at state. Like, it was crazy. Like, people didn't think he was going to qualify for state, you know, at one point. And then he breezed through there, whooped everybody.
What it shows, but good.
He overcame like some adversity that was crazy just throughout the tournament, like winning matches, beating kids he wasn't supposed to, making freaking weight, you know, because the night before tournament, he's 4 pounds over, you know. I was up till 1 a.m. running with him, up at 5 a.m. with him running, you know, making sure he's doing things. And you have those struggles with the kid, you see it happen. And then I envision that moment, like being able to happen, like, Cody, why are you getting up at 5 a.m? He could do this later, and it happened, you know, and it was just cool. Like, but then football, like him out there on special teams, he's the first one down there on kickoff, and he will strike you.
Yes,
when it comes to wrestling, that's what he's great at. On his feet, there's not a kid in the state that he can't take down. He can blow almost any kid on our team off their feet up to Colin Donnelly. Just quick strike. Okay. Yeah, just his quick trigger and his explosiveness is
because like you said, up in the box, I mean, he's the first one down there every single time. A lot of the way that we directional kick and some of that type of stuff. I mean, they some fair catches and things like that, but he is right there as soon as it happens. And then on top of it, you know, I mean, then he gets out of lane a little on the one, and I mean, you're up 42-0. Who's going to really chase down? Most kids in that situation would have just I mean,
I think very proud moment for me.
But I think also, I mean, I think that's when he kind of looked at it outside of himself and said, you know, we got a shutout here, and we're going to try and keep this thing. I know they punched it in 2 or 3 plays later, but I mean, for him to chase that down in that type of situation just goes to show the mindset of all the kids, but also especially him and the coaching that all the kids get. I mean, it was important.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. So the old mantra of no quarter. It didn't matter if it was 42-0 at that time. I mean, we're not going to let anybody get through that end zone, so I'm going to chase the guy down 60 yards.
And Bryce is a kid that starts like on offense or defense for a lot of teams in our
because he's a very good running back.
And he just happens to be behind some really good like kids. Like Trey Harris out at corner is a fantastic corner, and like Bryce is right there with him. You know, just Trey's good, and he's a senior, and he gets the job done. You know, and
Bryce's time's going to come because he's a sophomore.
He's a sophomore, and then at running back, he's great. But shoot, you got Ritson and Matt. And,
I mean, I think his time's going to come at corner. I think he will be. I think he will be a solid corner next year, kind of replacing Trey Harris.
And that's where he's finding like, where can I add value on the team? You know, and that's what our kids understand.
And I don't think he would be a huge drop off if something were to happen to Trey.
No,
because I know they were in a battle in the offseason and things like that. Trey did a good job of solidifying that position. He's done a great job since he's gotten in there. But Bryce is, like I said. And it's also kind of a caveat and kind of backtracking on some of the earlier stuff that we said. So he not lost the position, but that was one of the only competitions that there was in the offseason. He lost it. He's the first one down there on every special teams. He's the first one doing everything that you ask of him, now being a backup, where, you know, some kids, I didn't win the starting job, I'm out of here, I'm transferring.
Yep.
And that just testament of coaching staff and the type of kids and families and things like that as well.
Because I know what Bryce Martin's made of, because I've coached him since he was in 4th grade with that group. 3rd grade, you know, I know what he's made of. I know what he's capable of.
And I love when he does get the opportunity to run the ball. I like what I see. I mean, I think he's got a chance to be a decent running back. Yep. But like I said, right now, I mean, he's stuck behind potentially the all-time leading rusher in school history, and then a
The guy that's going to try to do it again.
Yeah, behind a freak of an athlete in Ritson, and then
if you want to see a battle in wrestling practice, I used to make Dax watch Bryce Martin and Talon Tadneva in wrestling practice, because these two kids would battle like you wouldn't believe. I was like,
okay, I can see that.
You got to practice like
so small and quick twitch and athletic.
Talent.
It's incredible to watch them.
Talent, like I said, I've only seen Talent play football, but I mean, in the limited carries that he's had as a runner, yes, very quick twitch.
It's freaky.
It is his feet and the way that he runs, natural, just very natural when he runs as a running back. Different than Matt and Ritson.
Yeah,
it's a different. It's
tempo
more instinctive. It's more instinctive.
Yes.
Matt's just so fast that everything he does is, Tasmanian devil to a certain degree.
Yes.
But Matt has grown as a running back in the last couple of years, and then Ritson is more power than anything. And but like I said, talent. There's just something about it that's a little bit different that it's fun to watch. Like I said, I know it's been in some situations with not much time left on the clock, but it's fun to watch him run because, like I said, it seems like he's almost like the most instinctive of the three of them.
He kind of glides a little bit.
Yeah. It's a different kind of look. So I'm curious to see, he's a freshman, to see kind of how he grows into his body a little. And because, Matt grew into his body a ton in the last 3 years. Ritson's starting to, as weird as it is to say, Ritson's starting to get rid of some of that baby fat and growing into his body. And so, it'll be interesting to see kind of where Talon goes from here. But Bryce Martin's not going to give that spot up easy either.
No, man.
That's a battle in practice, man. They're going to battle on the field, dog. It's going to be all up, too. You know what I mean?
And then you got Antuna, who went 77 yards against Anadarko without a problem either. So
they're really talented in that.
The running back room is in a good spot.
It very much is.
Let's jump into Sharpen Your Axe Award, Shea Spencer.
Yeah, Shea Spencer, Shea's probably one of the best athletes I've ever coached, like natural athleticism. It's crazy. And just, like, I haven't seen him do the freakiest things on the wrestling mat, like athleticism wise, but just the way I've seen him adapt into his body, because, like, he started wrestling at a young age and body did not agree with wrestling. He's kind of short, fat kid that got picked on by kids that were more mature at that age. But then to see him grow into it and then to come back into it the way he did this year, and just to see his development as a person, but more like his development mentally is what's been fantastic with him, and that's what's like caught everything up with that freaky athleticism he has, is this mentally, we're not worrying about Shea taking plays off or Shea not doing conditioning, which is some of the battles we kind of had at first, with a young kid growing up, going through things like that, and I'm sure he'll even say that himself. But as a coaching staff, we stayed consistent coaching him like that, and he grew through that. But like athleticism, he's freaky off the chart, man. And he's not very big. Like, he's 220 pounds, but he looks huge out there.
He looks huge. He looks huge out there. And then playing that right tackle, like I said, everybody goes to Keith and Jace because, they're both phenomenal football players, and they look the part of your prototypical offensive lineman, things like that. But talking to being involved with OSN and stuff like that, and talking to some of the coaches around the state, coaches around the district, state, and things like that, they said what's making us a little bit different this year is you've got a freak of an athlete also on the right side of the ball.
Yeah.
And that moving him from allowing him to move from center to tackle has probably solidified our offensive line a lot better than most people think or talk about. Because when he gets out there on some of those counters and some of that type of stuff, and then on pass blocking, because he's only 225, 230 or whatever, but because of his feet and his athletic ability, it's freaky.
He can block in space really
he can
well,
he can block in space very, very well. So it's a good counter to the big, huge left side that we have that ability to also have that one on the side. And then just to talk about last week, he definitely by far played his best game on the defensive side of the ball. Jack's always in the backfield, so you kind of get used to that and you kind of expect that. Right. but Shea was in there every single play and making big plays, big hits. And so he definitely deserved that award this week. And like I said, I mean, he's done a great job in the offensive line. Has done a great job in the offensive line in the last couple of years. But that Weatherford game was his kind of coming out party as a defensive lineman, in my opinion, because it shows what he's capable of. And if he can play that every week with Jack and Jace, it's scary.
Yes.
Because then it allows Ritson and Colin to do whatever they want. Because Jace holds up 2 or 3 people. People don't understand that.
Those 5 you just said right there, 5 best in the state, I feel like, man.
I mean,
defensively, like if you put a 5 core together right there, I know it's a big statement. There's a lot of good players out there, and I don't know everybody, but like I'll take my into war.
When you talk about a unit,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? I mean, there may be a defensive end out there in the state that that's getting more publicity than Jack and Shea and things like that. But when you talk about the entire unit, if Shea can play like he did against Weatherford, where Jack continues to progress the way he's progressing and play the way he did, like I said, Jace does a lot of unsung stuff on the defense side of all that people don't understand.
Yeah.
What Colin and Ritson running free and making those big hits, Colin running free and making the safety in Weatherford, and Ritson being all that kind of starts somewhat with Jace, because Jace is holding up 2 or 3 offensive linemen sometimes.
Yeah,
so it allows Colin and Ritson to run through there. Colin has gotten so much faster this year that you see it a little bit more this year because he's able to get sideline to sideline or get to the backfield a little bit faster. But yeah, if Shea can play like he did against Weatherford, it's going to be scary moving forward, and in a good way for us.
Yeah.
I think Coach Baker did a good job getting motivated, because there was some talk. There was some talk that happened,
Smoke and mirrors.
And I know Jack's not on the list this week, but he's always deserving of it. One of the things that bugged him is he wasn't in the top 10. You know what I mean, for defensive ends. You know what I mean, and so Coach Baker made a big deal. I just talked to him like that.
I think Jack's problem. I think Jack's problem is when you look at it on paper, you're never going to put 100 and what is he?
175 pounds.
Yeah, 180-pound defensive end. You're just not going to do it on paper and it's unfortunate, because if you watch a game, there's not many defensive ends that affect the game as much as Jack Angel.
Agreed.
If there's 2 or 3 in the state, I'd be surprised that affect an entire game on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, they're like I said, there's some kids right now that are committed to Oklahoma. Maybe I think there's one out there maybe committed to Alabama. Yeah, they do a great job. Don't get me wrong, but Jack doesn't take a play off, and there's kids out there that take plays off. Let's just put it that way.
It's hell at practice. Boy, the menace at practice.
Adam said the same thing. Coach Castro last week said the same thing. He went to Coach Baker right before the season started last year and said, if Angeli isn't one of the best defensive ends in the state, then I need to be fired because I can't block him. I can't block him.
There's a lot of groaning in the office about him, but that's a good problem.
Right. And but I mean, it goes back to the sharpen the axe deal, in that when you're practicing, when Jace and Shea are practicing offensive line, because we got a lot of kids that go both ways. When they practice, Jack is one of the kids that don't go both ways. When they practice offensive line, going against Jack helps them.
100%.
You know what I'm saying? I walk into the game and I'm going, well, this dude don't have half what Jack has, or And
that's normally 9 times out of 10.
Right. I mean, I know we played a good kid.
Jason Keith are saying, all right, these dudes ain't got anything. Jack
right. I mean, I know we played a good kid last week, and I mean, he's got some offers and things like that. But I mean, that kid did not affect the game the way that Jack did.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And that kid's got offers from,
Dude, and I wish y'all could see that kid in 7th grade try to play football. Jack Angeli, it was crazy. He couldn't get a stance. He couldn't tie a shoe. Never played before. Was trying to play receiver, and just, man, it was ugly. And even until that junior year when he got moved down to the line, Like Jack Angeli was not a football player.
No.
He was not a football player.
No.
And then, I mean, we just
the lights came on and did something
fortunate
flip.
enough, like as a coaching staff, like we just kept staying after it, trying to find a place for him, using what we got. You know, we knew his mentality. We knew what he was capable of. We knew like he's a solid kid, just a weird body. You know, that's a weird body right there, but found a way to get it done.
Oh, yeah.
He's a menace.
Well, let's jump into the next one, the Rough Rider of the Week. Freshman, Hudson. I like Hudson. Cody's, I'm sure you're going to talk about this, man, but, you know, Hudson, you know, watched him in wrestling practice, going to some of the big
Okay,
guys.
I didn't know he was a wrestler. Okay.
Yes. One of the biggest moments I had watching him practice this year was just, you know, seeing him battling there with the big dogs, Richmond. You know what I mean? Just watching that heart, the willing not to give up, keep going. 'Cause a lot of people, you know, wrestle against Richmond, they're like, I just assume I'm going to lose. You know what I mean? Not Hud. Nah, he don't mess around.
That's like we're fortunate with our wrestling practice. We're able to have junior high kids in there. We just bring them in after school, you know. So like when we were having a full on practice, last year it's Hudson in 8th grade, you know, but it's Hudson there with Ritson, Colin, Jace, you know, Shay, you know, they're all Hudson's in there as an 8th grader banging with them kids every day, you know, and a lot of kids come in there and they find different groups to go into. They know not to jump into that one, you know, but like Hudson every day is like, all right, I'm in that one. I'm going to go get my head stomped in.
So my little borderline nephew, Ambrose, so we kind of keep up with you guys through him and things like that. So we get to find out some interesting things there. So
yeah, and like he did a great job of just like, all right, I'm gonna come in here and take my lumps, but I know my role and I'm gonna get better from it. And then it translated into his football season. Like he started knowing immediately, like we were gonna expect things out of you football wise, and he took the same mindset. I'll go in there, bang with anybody, fight with the biggest dude from the other team, whatever it takes. And I think he graded the highest on the offensive line, and that's freaking fantastic as a freshman. But like it says a lot about the dudes around him too. They do a great job of mentoring and being like, him and Shay are freaking related, you know. So,
but like you don't, but
they are, ain't they?
Throughout the entire game though, like it never really comes up that he's a freshman.
No,
because he really doesn't get beat. I mean, he does a good job of. Like any other offensive lineman, I mean, when you're doing your job, we're not talking about you.
Yep.
You know,
being selfless.
And it really, I forget sometimes, and then we kind of roll back into it and during the game sometimes that he's a freshman.
Yep.
Because everybody else is kind of older. I mean, Keith and Carson, I think, are both seniors. Yep. And then I mean, you got Jace and Shay that are juniors, and so he kind of gets lost in the shuffle because you talk about a lot of times the Keith and Jace. And you forget, I mean, he's just a freshman. And he's in there in 5A doing a very good job. And like I said, it's not like we don't see a ton of pressure up the middle.
There's no drop off, you know.
There's no drop off. I mean, I like I said, I know he necessarily wasn't going to be the starter coming into the year, but he's done a great job all year of just manning his role. And like I said, not being the weak link. And I, like I said, knowing that now that he's a wrestler and kind of finding some of that stuff out about him makes sense.
And it was cool. Like, he's just a kid. Like I could have 5th and 6th grade PE. So I just started hitting him up in like 5th grade PE. Like, hey, come to wrestling, dude, and teach him some wrestling, keep him involved a little bit, you know, and just not going to all these little youth tournaments and trying to be hardcore about it. Just saying, hey, wrestling's cool. Remember when you get to junior high, let's wrestle, you know. And then 7th grade, got him. Bang, he's out there ripping heads off, you know, and he's just always going to have good partners and he has really good mentorship with the kids, you know.
Well, and these
kids that do a good job of like I don't know how to really explain it. They just do a good job of making him feel like, hey man, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Like, even though you're a freshman, this is what you're supposed to be doing. We've had kids do this before. You're going to step in and do just fine.
Well, and that's when you start building a program.
Yeah. So
what's going to happen is next year he's going to be on that line with 2 seniors, and you have to fill in for Carson and Keith, and then all of a sudden he's going to become that kid, and he's going to grab that freshman or grab that sophomore, the Trip Dotsons and some of those type of kids, and be like, I did it as a freshman. Why can't you?
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where we're different now and I mean, you can probably speak to this since you've been on the staff longer than anybody at this point, 7 years. That's where I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, that's where we're different now compared to 4 or 5 years ago, to where it was, everybody was new at it, and there was it really wasn't a program from the outside looking in.
No, we were just kind of surviving year to year.
Well,
No, I mean, that's not a great way to put it, but like just we were trying to have some classes that had inconsistency with coaching, like we were trying to give them the best experience they could have, their last few years of high school, to give them good consistency and and everybody did a fantastic job of that. And then we really tried to invest in the younger class, and you just watch the process of them coming up and like taking some lumps in that process, We had a defeated season, it sucked. And there was some
but looking back on that, how much did y'all learn from that?
A ton.
And how much are these kids now going, I don't want to go back there?
No,
and they're also telling the kids coming up, because I mean, it's one thing we talk about the first and second grade game. You're there, you don't have to be there until the 5th grade game, but you're there. You've got Ritz and Case on the sideline. You've got Braxton. You've got Keith, who has no relationship to him, saying, hey, I need a schedule.
Yeah.
Things like that. Jace, shows up to some of them. Then we had the little preseason youth camp, and 20 of the varsity kids were out there coaching, the youth kids. And I mean, that goes back to the community. It goes back to the families. That goes back to, we're trying to build something a little bit more than just, hey, this is a fun year because we're,
right now,
we're
Colin
winning.
Donnelly and Ritson and Jace and Trace and all of them are the coolest kids in town. And that's the way it should be. Like, that's the way it should be. And there's a lot more. Like, they're the coolest kids in town. You wear that Elgin jersey, even if you don't play necessarily, like, those kids are really looking up to you right now. And like, there was a point in time where that wasn't so much around here, and that's not like a real testament to anybody, but it's just that's what it was. And like, now I see my kid like, damn, let's go watch the junior high. He was there last night, on the sideline watching the 7th grade game with me, and just the wannabe coolness is really there with football.
No, it's a big deal. I think it's Jared Williams, Ryan Donnelly both talked about that. Bring that tradition back. Sometimes some people get stuck in that loser mentality. It's not okay to lose.
It happens.
That's what I love about Coach Rowell is, sometimes I feel myself being too soft on my own kid. You know what I mean? But Coach Rowell, he reels it back in. I'm like, yeah, right. You gotta get this right here.
And now, like you said,
why not you? Why not you? You can be the champion too.
They're the coolest kids in town. Like I said, like Chris Hayes and those guys at Pizza Corral. They're posting. They're changing their deal every week to say something about, whether it be the offensive line, whether it be about Matt Lund or whatever. So, the community's bought in now. Weatherford. Weatherford's a super proud, big program.
Yeah.
We had more people. We had just as many people there at that game on Friday than they did. We had people from the community, like I said, some of the 1st and 2nd grade cheerleading parents that I know of, some of our friends or whatever. We all... You were with us. They all came up, like they got 1st and 2nd graders and 3rd and 4th graders.
They made a weekend out of it.
They made a weekend and we stayed and went up to the game and things like that. That's when you're like, okay, this is, it's a special season. Everybody thinks it might be. Got a long way to go to determine that. But everybody is bought in now. And like I said, again, that's part of a program because these 1st and 2nd grade kids, 3rd and 4th grade kids, whatever, whether it be cheerleaders, football players, band, whatever, is I want to perform on Friday night in front of all those people.
Yeah.
Because they go to the games now and the stands are packed go to a road game. We got just as many people. Hell, the first and second grade game, we for sure had more people than the Weatherford people had.
Dude, and we won at every single level the next day. And like, that was just cool because even the coaches from there was like, hey, y'all run a really good program over there. Y'all do a great job, and like, that's cool to see,
Well, and it becomes, and it gets noticed.
Yes.
Because I know how coaches think and talk and, Coach Wyatt knows what the first and second grade team did, what the third grade team, what the fourth grade did. We know what happened against Lawton High on Monday. We know what happened. You think, because at the end of the day, those first and second grade kids, at some point, if you plan on being here for a while, are going to be your varsity kid. Yeah. So, if they're winning early, you're going, okay, well, we're set up okay for the future as well. It's a cool deal what we're experiencing right now.
Yeah, and we got people that are willing to invest in the kids that much and invest in the community that much. I'm willing. No matter what, I'm going to invest into that, like the first and second grade team, because personally, it benefits my family tremendously with my son. But like there is like I don't plan on going anywhere. I love living here. I want what's best for it, and at least right now that's the vision, and a lot of people are bought in on it, I feel like.
Yeah, and that's the way we are. My wife is a first and second grade cheerleading coach. We're not leaving Elgin. We own a State Farm agency. So it's not a business that moves. So we're here in the community, offices in Lawton, but we're here in the Elgin community. And so we bought in. We're members of the quarterback club. We don't have a kid we got 2 girls, but we're members of the quarterback club because that helps, sporting programs, things like that. That's when things can get done. That's when things, when you have buy-in from kids, it all starts with the kids. If the kids aren't bought in, then the parents aren't going to be bought in.
Yep.
And then if the community sees that the parents are bought in, then the community's going to buy in, and it's all kind of a trickle effect. So,
before we get the final words, let's jump into the game with Reno.
Do you have any more players of the game?
Oh shit, my bad. I got ahead of myself there. Yeah, good call, dog. Yeah, and then offense player of the week.
Okay,
who?
Richard Meyer. The dog, man. The dog himself.
My boy. I'm better than golf at.
He and I talked a little bit about golf on Saturday.
Yeah, I see him out at the golf course every once in a while. Like one day during the summer, I was just really wanting to go out and do something by myself. I was kind of and I went out at 110 degrees, 3 o'clock in the afternoon in Muni. And I coached his little brother, Jensen, too, in first, second grade.
Yes, you did.
Yeah. And I get out there. There's only one other van out there. And I was like, it's nothing. I'll just go out and start playing with myself, having a good time. About hole 2. Coach Rowell! I look over. It's Jensen and Ritson just out there playing in the heat. So I played 18 holes with them. It was one of the best days of the summer I had, man. I enjoyed the hell out of it. They're great kids, great family, and Ritson's Ritson, dude. He's freaking good. He's a kid that we coach hard because we have to, but you just have to coach him hard, but you have to love him hard too at the same time.
Talk about coaching him. Because like I said, he's a sophomore. He's done a lot of great things so far, and he's got a long way to go. You got to coach a kid like that hard, because if not, then he's going to get complacent and he's going to get cocky. And
it's easy for him to be the best kid around here,
Right.
We always want him, and he does a good job at doing that.
Yeah.
We just always just keep him in line, keep him motivated, keeping him doing the right things, which is he does a great job. And
the one thing I love to see about him too, because like I said, he has the ability to be obnoxiously cocky. But when Matt scores a touchdown, he's the first guy out there. Him and Brody are super close. When Brody does something great, he's the first one out there and things like that. He's bought in. He's not some of those kids that.
No, he's not selfish.
He's not a selfish kid at all. And that goes to show kind of what they're doing at the home front, because he comes from a good family too. But yeah, he's
just always hungry for the spotlight.
Yes, he wants it.
That's good, and that's something that as a coach, you learn with an athlete like that how to coach them. And my relationship with him has grown tremendously in the past year. And I value it, and he's taught me things as a coach, and like, I'm sure we have a long road ahead of us here, you know, and like he has the potential to do something that only 50 other kids in Oklahoma history has ever done, is win 4 state championships in wrestling. 50 kids have ever done it. They had the 50th this year, you know, and he has the potential to do that. And that's pretty special, man.
All right. So football player, wrestler, what is he better at?
He's a better football player. He's a better football player. I'll give him that. And like wrestling, I think he likes wrestling to an extent, but also like,
I mean, he might be a better baseball player than he's a football player.
Yeah, he's good at those. And like, you know what else he was pretty good at is he's pretty good at basketball, and I had to fight that battle for a while, you know.
To keep him out of that.
He played junior high basketball and wrestled at the same time, you know, and I worked out a deal where it worked out in junior high, but once you got into high school, like, it was a serious decision. You had to make a commitment, you know, and I've never done that with any other kid, you know, and I don't know if I ever will do it with any other kid. It's just like, it was what happened at the time, and that's like, he needed a constant competition, you know, and to do that. And like, hell, when you're playing 6 sports, you're not getting in any trouble. So like, go ahead, my man. Yeah. Like, have at it, you know. And
the parents that try and we can maybe get into this a little bit, but I mean, like, the parents that try and say, I want my kid to specialize. I mean, we talked earlier a little bit about kind of the parent mindset and, you know, coaching the parents and things like that. I mean, as a coach, talk a little bit about that, like the specialization thing and whatever. I mean, because look, I played football, basketball, and baseball most of my life. Ended up in high school just playing basketball and baseball, football and baseball. But I mean, when you look at an NBA draft, when you look at an NFL draft, you look at an NBA draft, you look at a Major League Baseball draft, all those kids played multiple sports throughout high school 100%. Because you learn so much from other sports because you're still competing.
Yes.
When you're in a lab or you're in a batting cage, you're learning the technique of hitting, but you're not learning how to compete. I mean, talk a little bit about, you know, the competing aspect of it and playing multiple sports, since you're a coach of multiple sports. I mean,
man, that was Coach Wyatt did a really good job of like bringing that in when he came in,
because he's a baseball guy.
He is, man, and like, he played college baseball. You know, you wouldn't expect that like tremendously out of him, like to push all those sports, but like immediately he saw the benefits of wrestling and the benefits of like multiple sports, and he was a great football player as well, and just played basketball, multiple sports. So like, him just being receptive to pushing that was good, you know. And then like, constantly with our kids, everything was a competition. We were always trying to compete in drills, compete in doing this, compete in the weight room. And like, for a while, it was like even competing to a senseless matter. Like, we were competing over everything, you know, but it was good. It brought those kids like into that drive, you know, and it changed like kind of the culture onto that. But as far as like parents wanting their kids to specialize in sports, like their wrestling is different kind of in his perspective, because there's a certain type of kid that like, man, wrestling's probably the only thing for you.
Yeah.
And like, I get that. So like, at first, like, I didn't even like wrap my head around that aspect of it, even as a wrestler growing up, until I got into coaching, you know, because like, as a wrestler growing up, like, I didn't notice the people around me that were just in wrestling to be in wrestling because they needed that, you know.
Yeah.
As a coach, like, I recognize that. So like, that's a little bit different now. I see that. But like, as far as like trying to just say, man, we're just going to be in the gym shooting, or we're just going to be playing baseball 8 months out of the year, or we're just playing football. Like, I look at it just kind of as a different, 2 different ways. Like, a way as in, if you're doing all these things as a kid, like, man, there's not a lot of time to get in trouble, like I said. And that's how I grew up, you know, and it kept me out of a lot of trouble as a youngster, just being in these sports all the time, doing this and that, you know. And that's the lifestyle my parents lived, we all lived, you know, and it worked out. And then just
but I learned, so being a football player playing baseball, I had a different mentality as a baseball player, because baseball, it's not as rah-rah, it's more individual.
Yeah.
To a certain degree. Yes, you're on a team, but your individual success can take you a lot further in baseball if you're good and things like that.
And there are certain kids that cannot buy into the team concept.
Correct.
They were raised in a different way, or
Correct.
just their mindset. And wrestling's a sport for some of those kids.
Yeah.
Different sports might be that for them. It's just as like parents, like at least try to throw as many things against the wall as you can and see what sticks too. You know, that's kind of like
Right.
where I'm at with like a lot of kids. Just throw them in anything, you know, let them play all these sports.
Well,
I
and
mean,
competition is the best for everything.
yeah, dude,
I mean,
just
because
staying busy doing it.
Yeah. I mean, competition, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, these parents that, like I said, I mean, I'm not trying to call out any parents that are doing it, but I mean, if you're doing it because I want my kid to go pro, when you look at the statistics,
It's not
multi-sport kids more often go pro.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they're competing at higher levels, you know, they're competing in different sports. And I mean, it makes you a better athlete because there's things that you do as a quarterback. If you play baseball, you know, I could throw from different arm angles because I was, you know, this, that, and the other. As a baseball player, if you're a football player, I mean, I can take if I'm a shortstop, I get taken out at second base. I mean, if I'm a football player, okay, it's easier to get taken out because it's not the first time I've ever gotten hit in my life.
Ritson got tackled and did a cartwheel last week,
Right,
because I make him do cartwheels every day in that wrestling.
And he was not down.
And he does not like to do cartwheels every day. And I'm still like, Ritson, you're going to do your damn cartwheels today, even if you don't want to. And there it is right there. He can do that in a game, you know.
And he wasn't down, but they called him down. He was not down.
Man, I agree with you. And that would have been one of the best
Yes,
in America.
it would have been incredible. Yeah.
And like,
he and I talked a little bit about that Saturday. I was like, "You weren't down, were you?" I said, "I mean, I was up high. I mean," and he goes, I don't think I was, but."
And I believe like body control, wrestling teaches you a lot of that. And his awareness. And
my brother-in-law will say this: my brother-in-law played safety at Ole Miss and was a D1 athlete, played in the SEC. And we're going to say 95% of that was because he was a wrestler.
Yeah.
He was a white safety in the SEC.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen often. And a lot of that he contributes to wrestling because of body control, you know, that mentality of being always on the offensive and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's the way it goes.
Good as Ritson is, as decent as he was in basketball, he's a lot better wrestler. Okay, so he made the right decision. It's what's good. Even the basketball coach agreed he made the right decision at one point, you know. And I'm sure, like, it's just.
I'll call Coach Green after this.
No,
if he wants to team.
It's just. We came over that hurdle, but don't make us take a step back, please.
That's one thing I like about football is like you can still play football. But I think sometimes people have to understand you may not be playing the position you think you're going to play. You know what I mean? You can't start as quarterback all these years and assume you're going to be a quarterback. There's things you can. Same thing with running back. You know what I mean? You're not going to be the running back for the rest of your life. Sometimes you might need to be a slot receiver.
Well,
it is what it is.
In Little League, what happens is, I mean, you're the first second grade coach. You can tell us. I mean, you put your best athletes at, you know, quarterback and
run them to the
running
outside.
back. And just, you know, you snap it and student body right, student body left, and that's all you go with. And as the kids start to progress and things like that, I mean, it's once they get to about 5th, 6th grade, you can kind of, and I may be a little bit off by the years because I'm not a coach, but I mean,
no, you're right.
Looking back on it in my playing days and whenever, about 5th or 6th grade, you can kind of tell where kids are going to kind of be. And I mean, all of a sudden, you never know. I mean, this kid
changes a lot.
Yeah, there was this 5th or 6th grade kid that, you know, was kind of goofy and whatever, and you put him on the line. Then all of a sudden, as 8th and 9th grade, you're like, oh crap, he can. Yeah. You know, he's slimmed out. He's lost that baby fat and some of that type of stuff. And I mean, now all of a sudden he's a receiver or running back. And I mean, like you said, football is kind of one of those weird sports where, I mean, it's ever changing. And I mean, I've seen situations where, in high school where like kids played like freshman O-line and then turned into like junior and senior running back.
Yeah.
Because he just kind of lost body fat and lost some of that type of stuff. And now all of a sudden it's just, you know, it's just a different body type. And I mean, because I mean, Grossbert's Adam Eaton. I mean, is a perfect example. I mean, he grew into his body and now all of a sudden he's a pretty darn good tight end. And I mean, looks pretty impressive on the football field.
Yeah. That's funny because like my kid Castro's got his hooks in him. The other day we were just talking about, growing up, what do you want to play? When I can't wait till I get to junior high so I can play my real position. So what, man, what are you talking about? I figured he plays quarterback now. He knows eventually he ain't going to be very tall. He's probably going to have to play running back or receiver or something. He goes, O-line. I said, what? He said, I'm going line, blocking people. I said, all right then, son. All right. And Castro had him running freaking counter and youth camp this summer. He got his hooks in on him. So I was like, all right, man, you got a good perspective there. Like, I can enjoy that. But like Adam Eaton, like you said, dude, that's a kid that was their grade school running back. Ran like a deer. He looked like Matt Lund, kind of like a body type in grade school, like kind of just slender and a little bit taller. And then through junior high, he kind of got just awkward body, too big, and then just explosion. The past 2 years, the weight room extremely hard. I saw him working in there, and then just grew into a grown freaking man out there. That's a giant. Like, people look at him, that's somebody who's going to get attention just by size alone.
Yeah. Is he a junior? He's a
junior.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to get some looks just because
he's a great looking kid.
He's a great looking kid. And that's, like I said, that's a lot of things that, some parents don't understand also on the recruiting side of it. I mean, it's not necessarily what you're doing now. It's also kind of about your projections of what you could be.
Yeah,
moving forward. That's the part that
hard facts of football.
That's the part that sucks. I mean, so at UNA, so I'll go on a little tangent here about UNA. So there was a kid on our team that played defensive end that never played. He came in as a quarterback. He was 6'7", 250. I beat him out. He came in as a quarterback. And I beat him out, so I became the quarterback. So they moved him to defensive end. They tried to move him to tight end. I'm not playing tight end. I'm going to defensive end. Backup. Never played for us. D2 school. D2. Now, top 5 D2 school in the country, made it to semifinals, all that kind of stuff. Gets picked up, so doesn't get drafted, obviously. Played sparingly, if at all, for us the whole time we were in school. D2 program. Plays 6 years in the league for the Steelers.
Dude.
Because in D2, he thought he was better than all of us to a certain degree. So he really didn't put in the work and time. And then we graduated, got an agent who told him, I can get you a free agent deal. You just got to suck it up, work out, be a tight end, and, run down on special teams, stuff like that. Like, wouldn't play special teams for us in D2 because he's like, I'm above, I'm 6'7" and 250 and, whatever.
That's crazy.
And played 6 years for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But barely played it down for us. But they drafted him on his potential. Now, part of it was his mindset.
Right.
But drafted him, he played 6 years in the league. Now he gets a pension in the league and all this kind of stuff. And, I'm sitting here going, I beat him out as quarterback.
Yes.
Where's my pension?
Yeah. Where's my projection at?
And I think that gets lost though in the recruiting world too,
tremendously.
And on the high school side of things, like you'll see these kids that have these offers, and you're going, how?
But then like Coach Wyatt did a great job at the initial parent meeting of telling people like, hey, you think your kid's D1? Here's the average D1 weight and height here of a lineman. Yeah. And here's what they're doing every day, and like broke it down. And I think it opened a lot of people's eyes that like, hey, my baby is not like going to do this or that, and that's good. And that's kind of bringing some realism to people, and just.
I don't think people understand 1AA and D2 is not that much different than D1. Now it's really not even, because now you're actually on TV every week with all the streaming programs and all that kind of stuff. So you are playing on TV every week. But all those D1 kids that sign, there's a shit ton of them that now are playing 1AA and D2 after their first year, getting up there and going, oh, the only difference in D1AA and D2 compared to D1 is the depth.
Right.
The starters, if you're a starter at a D1 school, and I'm not talking about LSU, Alabama,
Right.
the top 15, 20 programs in the country. But if you're a starter at a D1, D1AA, or a D2 school, I'd say the top 20 D2 schools in the country, is really not that much of a drop off. Where the drop off happens in 1AA and D2 is the backups.
Yeah.
You're limited in scholarships, so you don't have as many scholarship kids on the roster. But I mean, those kids can compete, to a certain degree, and you're still playing college football.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Still getting
school paid for.
You're still getting school paid for.
You're still going to get a look to go to the most money-making league.
You still have the opportunity to go to the NFL. I mean, I played at a D2 school, and I played with 7 kids that played in the NFL. I mean, and you look at an Oklahoma team, I mean, they might have had 15.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not that much different. It all happens once you get there and start progressing.
I agree, man, and I really feel strongly about the D2 D1 thing a lot, and like football, I've never really put it in that perspective, but I agree. But wrestling, it was kind of the same thing. Like wrestling for a D2 school, like we still competed with OU and OSU. We'd go wrestle against them. Like it wasn't a thing. I wrestled for the second winningest coaching ever with David James. He has the second most wins ever, and then wrestled against UFC champion, you wrestle against the best of the best no matter what. It's just you're right, there's different depths to it, and it's kind of the same thing with wrestling. There's a little bit longer of a season, a little bit more of a grind, and it's just
football side of things. I mean, playing in D2, my 3 years playing in D2, I played against 3 Super Bowl champions.
Dude, that's cool.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, they ended up when guys that I played against, and one guy sacked the shit out of me multiple times in a game. Won a Super, but 3 guys won Super Bowls that I played against, and I mean, looking at the number, I think it was 45 to 50 guys that I played against at some point in my college career played in the NFL.
Damn, that's cool.
You know what I'm saying? So it's you get the stigma. I mean, I got to go D1. I got to go Oklahoma. I got to go. No, I mean, if you're playing college football, you're playing at the next level. And if you can progress to that next level, then you've done something good.
Yeah, just like that size thing alone. I remember at Duncan, we played against 2 kids that were Gerald McCoy, who played against them. He was huge. Jermaine Gresham. They were huge kids out there. But I remember playing against them, not them being tremendous forces in the game, just being huge dudes out there, and then you just see their projection and how they go, off that size alone, in football is just insane. And
so speaking of that, high school, we played West Monroe. My senior year in high school, we played West Monroe. West Monroe's left tackle was Andrew Whitworth, and their middle linebacker was Brady James. Played for the Cowboys forever.
Awesome.
Right. And we held our own in the game. They were way better than us. We held our own in the game. And I threw, Andrew wasn't on the field when I was playing, but Brady was. Brady bounced me off the turf like I was a basketball 2 or 3 times, but also threw for 270 yards. So I was like, oh yeah. And they also had 3 or 4 other kids that ended up going D1.
Yeah, that's I was like, man, we played against them dudes. And I mean, they beat the crap out of us. I remember, but it was just they were D1 kids that were out there playing, and it really it wasn't a ton of difference. I felt out there, and I was by no means a D1 football player. I didn't know that level, but just playing against some kids like that, the mindset helps
makes you better.
How you play against them.
My sophomore year, I was playing safety because the quarterback before me went to Mississippi State. So we played Major Applewhite was quarterback.
Damn,
Greg Brooks was the receiver. He played at Texas. and Travis Minor was a running back who played at Florida State. And we ended up whooping their ass. And so that was a cool deal. Now we were in New Orleans school, so we had a decent amount of D1 athletes on our team too. No big names. And I was playing safety at the time. Travis Minor, I had an angle on Travis Minor, and he kicked in a second gear and made me look like I was running a forever. I was a 4'6", 4'7" kid, and he made me look like I was running a forever. I had the angle on him and everything. He kicked in the second gear. I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah, I got out-athleted several times out there, but just tried to make up for it.
So I hadn't talked about it much, but we'll kick into quick gear about El Reno.
El Reno. Let's talk about kind of, the victory last year and what that victory ended up meaning. You know what I mean?
It was a good win for us. It was our first game ever in 5A. I remember playing on that. I was kind of hyped up and stuff. And we went out there, and it wasn't even a game. Like, we beat the piss out of them last year.
Yeah.
I felt like, and I think anybody will agree with that. And I don't know, going into it, that just set the whole tone for the district. We kind of we were like, all right, we're pretty good. And then when we went and thumped Ardmore the next week, we were like, all right, we're ready to go roll some people up. And I don't know. That's just kind of the mentality we're taking into this week. They're good. I'm not going to say they're not a good team. They're a pretty good team. They took Weatherford down to the wire, and I think Weatherford's a good team. So we'll have to go in there and battle. And going into a place like that's not good. That's going to be a hostile environment. And probably a place where we won't get the calls that we want or anything like that. So we have to be disciplined, and we have to make sure that we're on our A game with that. So that's good. Like, we need those tests, And
I've got to talk to Coach Castro. I found out we're going to be in the same booth.
Oh.
Yeah. So Coach O, Coach Castro, and I are going to have a
David Dilling.
We're going to be a little tight, but we'll have some fun up there.
Dang. But yeah, that's
they're a good football team. Like I said, last year, looking back on it, they weren't where they wanted to be when we played them. They got way better as the year progressed, and they ended up making it to the playoffs. If we would have thought about it week 4 last year, there's no way we would have thought they would have made it to playoffs. So they've gotten a lot better. They returned a decent amount of people. They lost some people, but they do return a decent amount of people. So it's going to be a tough challenge. I don't think it's going to be much different than Weatherford. Not saying the score, because it is a district game and we are on the road. But they're very similar to Weatherford. In the way that they like to do things. The only thing that's a little bit different is they're a pound. They're a ground and pound team. So, our defense, I think that feeds into our defense a little because, we're definitely, we're fine against the pass. I'm not saying that we're not good against the pass, but Weatherford like to kind of spread you out and throw it around a little, where they're going to kind of try and ground and pound you a little. So we might not have as many possessions on offense because they might try and. If I were them,
that's what I would do.
I would try and. But our offense is doing great and all that kind of stuff. But if you ask any of our coaches, and Cody, you can maybe second me on this. Everything starts with our defense.
Yeah.
Right now our defense is lights out. And yes, we can score with just about anybody in the state, but our defense does a great job of
they take it like on the Dion level. It's personal.
Yeah, it's personal. They take it to a whole nother level. So the offense gets a lot of the credit a lot of times, Matt and Trace and those guys. But at the end of the day, the whole team starts with the defense. So if I'm the way El Reno, I would think, is looking at things is because they are a ground and pound team, they're going to try and keep it away from our offense and try and get some first downs and try and do some things. But I still think we're okay at the end of the day. But we need to win this one. It's first district game. In Oklahoma high school football, those first 3 games that we played, they're great, they're wonderful, but they don't mean anything. They don't mean anything as far as our playoff seeding or anything. So that's why some people kind of break it into 3 seasons. That was kind of the preseason to a certain degree. It's always good, obviously, to come out of the quote-unquote preseason 3-0 and have a lot of momentum. But El Reno's, it's a different test because it's a district game, because it's on the road. But I think it's going to be very similar to Weatherford. If we can come out and execute the way that we're capable of, I think we learned a lot from that first half of Weatherford. I think we can clean some things up. If we come in and execute the way we did in the second half, I think it could get similar to the way that second half went.
Definitely. I think we're just, I agree. And I think we're going to just challenge the kids to not play on their emotions as much this week, and to just remember what they're there to do, remember what's important. Coach Wyatt said that a lot this week. Remember what's important, and what's important is going out there and executing the game plan and doing things right. And really want to try to be sound on all 3 phases, make sure special teams are cleaned up and just do everything right this week. Cause El Reno's kind of different with that. They do some weird stuff.
Yeah.
They're gonna have something, like when.
And we got a little chippy last week. We need penalties right now. If you would say, hey, what is your biggest problem? 3-0, and you've scored 500 points, whatever it is, and they've scored 13. I mean, what's your biggest issue? Penalties. Yep. I mean, we have a lot of penalties. They haven't come back to haunt us at this point because we really haven't played in any games where. I mean, the first half of Weatherford they did, and that's why it was only 13-0.
Yep.
But we got to kind of get through some of that, and some of those pre-snap ones. Those are the ones that, some of them you can agree with or be okay with, but the pre-snap ones, where it's straight mental, whether it's jumping off sides on defense, jumping off sides on offense, lining up incorrectly, some of that type of stuff, holding
mental mistakes.
Yeah, just the mental mistakes. I mean, and like I said, we haven't made them. At this point, we're super nitpicky. Because you have to be as a coach and as it'd be great to say, oh, everything's gone wonderful, but you can't tell 16 and 18-year-old kids that everything's gone wonderful. But it hasn't really, because I know you guys as a staff can say we haven't played a perfect game yet by any stretch of the imagination.
No, and just like if we want to have our bigger goal in sight, which is winning the state championship, like we've got to hit on a bigger cylinder. We've got to focus ahead on bigger things, and that's just not getting through the week game. It's getting better and building momentum week by week into the postseason, and having our kids buy into that, and like we remember as a staff, we challenge them every day to a really, really high level, and sometimes we got to sit back and question or just like tell each other like, yo, we're expecting excellence out of these kids, cut them a little bit here, make sure they feel loved. But like, remember, every day we're expecting excellence, and we do a good job holding kids accountable for that. And you have to, if you want to win a state championship, you have to. But like, there's a responsibility with that. You can't just hold a kid accountable every single day and not have a deeper relationship than just holding them accountable. You've got to have a personal relationship with them or some sort of connection with them, somebody on your staff, and that's just. As a whole, like they do a good job of that. No matter who they are, we find kids and try to connect with them.
No, 100%. I was going to go on the final words, but I feel like that was the final words.
Yeah, 100%. No, because
100%. Cody, you want to give any shout outs or anything coming up?
No, just if you are looking for like an outlet for your kid, especially, we have youth signups coming up, youth wrestling. If you'll find our Facebook, it's just Elgin Wrestling, and encourage you. We run 3 different groups, like a beginner group, which is babies, 3, 4, 5-year-old kids come out there, roll around on the mat for an hour, get some energy out once a week.
Right there.
It is, man. And like, I personally run every single one of those every Monday. Like I take that in just because my kids have done that, and like I just believe in that. And then there's a novice group we run twice a week, which is if your kid's a little older and just like 1 or 2 years in, let them get some experience. And then we run our open group with our killers, 3 times a week. And just if you as soon as they're done with football, we roll right into wrestling. I'll coach them up. If you want to get your kid involved, it's a great way.
Hey, if you don't have, if you haven't gotten footballed out on the weekend, we want all y'all to try to travel up to El Reno. But if you can't, you can watch us on OSN. But if not, you've got a home game, 1st and 2nd grade at 9:00 against Tuttle.
That's right, baby.
Big Tuttle Tigers opportunity there. So if you can't, Cody Rowell will be the head coach there. My wife will be the cheerleading coach.
She'll
be drawing them up on Saturday mornings to make sure that everything's going right in the Elgin world.
That's right, baby.
Leading up into it. So
that's right.
Shout out to State Farm too.